Not all bread is created equal. And if you like yours soft, fluffy, moist, and delicious, then Hero Bread and Buns should be your first choice. But Hero Bread isn't just about taste and texture. It's high in fiber with ultra-low net carbs with 0 grams of sugar. Order today at hero.co and use the code AH10 to get 10% off your first purchase. That's AH10 at hero.co, HERO.co for 10% off your first purchase.
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
I keep saying this. If you have not had a chance to check out Pressrun.media, you're really missing something. And more, the best part you're missing, ladies and gentlemen, is the confirmation that you are not crazy. When you look at what's going on in the mainstream media and the way they're covering the Biden administration in addition to everything else. And we all need that confirmation that we're not crazy in this COVID situation, don't we? It's comforting to know that you are not alone. You're not crazy. The things you're seeing that don't make sense, you're not alone. Eric Boehlert helps to educate us about how and why those things don't make sense. They don't add up. They aren't fair. The Beltway media is truly a trip. We're happy to have our good friend Eric Boehlert back with us as always on Make It Plain. Buddy, how are you?
Good, and you?
Just fine. Hanging in here. Yeah, man. So a few things. We haven't talked in a few weeks. So I want to touch on a few things. So now, the press says that the Beltway press says that Trump actually deserves some credit for Biden's success with the vaccine.
Yeah.
They're still melting down about a press conference.
Yeah.
For what? And they're still trying to find ways to criticize him. It's as if they don't have anything to. If it's not negative, they can't do it. But let me share this with you, and then when you respond, I interviewed a guest recently. He teaches at City University of New York. He has a book out, Dr. Nicholas Freudenberg, Eric, and he has a book out, At What Cost Modern Capitalism and the Future of Health. And in the book, he talks about how profitable disinformation is to corporations, and it's just this simple. He documents how when polarizing, divisive information gets more reactions and clicks, and that helps advertise products. So we weren't talking directly about the corporate media, but when he said that, I said, well, that's interesting. So there is an incentive.
Yeah.
To do that. So we're going to create some disparagement or some conflict for Joe Biden, because that gets clicks for our advertising dollars and our sponsors. I mean, it seems to me that's the name of the game. Why else would you? Is that Biden said he didn't want to be a president that had to be on television all the time? I mean, I think we could get a little break from that.
Yeah.
I remember a time in life when you didn't see the president on television every day, and it was okay.
Days and days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trump blew up everything, right? He blew up all the protocols, all the traditions, and in a way, the media loved it, because what did that do for 4 years? It put news at the forefront, and just for everyday Americans. I mean, I think some people after 2 or 3 years just threw up their hands and said, I can't possibly do this every day, and good for them, because it was quite taxing. But yeah, this idea that the president had to be on TV every day, he had to be making controversies every day, completely unheard of, and Biden has no interest of it. But it did create this pattern, and it was a boom for the news business, because it helped a lot for clicks and ratings and profits, but also it just made them so relative, right? They're at everyone who covered the Trump White House got a book deal. I mean, everyone. I don't, you know how many people are going to get a book deal who cover the Biden White House? Maybe 2. I mean, if I had to predict right now, I think probably 15 people got book deals. And those are, and with Trump, all those books went to number 1. I mean, people were buying vacation houses. Let's just be honest what was going on. That was the economy. Everyone knew that was going to disappear when Biden came in. Everyone knew it was going to be kind of a return to normalcy. Biden was not going to be on Twitter. He was not going to be, you know, we see these daily press briefings. They're constantly trying to get Biden to, or the White House to weigh in on these cultural wars, and they just have absolutely no interest. Couldn't care, not that they couldn't care less, but the idea that, you know, Biden has to pontificate about every topic under the sun. So that's all a general way of saying yes. I think the press is trying to create, there's several things going on. The press is trying to create content, trying to create controversy, trying to create conflict. And I think they're trying to show they're not part of the liberal media. Oh, well, because if we went hard after Trump, boy, watch us go hard after Biden. So it started in the first week when they kept pressing Biden. Why, you know, why haven't you united the country? Why aren't you adopting the Republican agenda in the name of unity? Why wasn't the COVID bill bipartisan? And the more 2 specific ones you mentioned that were really head scratchers. Why isn't Trump getting credit for the vaccine? And why aren't you having a press conference? Let's just real quick. Let's do the vaccine thing. So, in a classic case, it was a Republican talking point morphing into news. Republicans were angry that Trump wasn't getting credit, but it was just, it's almost hard to describe. I mean, yes, you know, the federal government set up this warp speed thing. Pfizer wasn't a part of that, so they had nothing to, you know, they had no connection with the federal government. But my gosh, if you're talking about the vaccine rollout under Trump, it was a national embarrassment. There was no plan. Their plan was to dump this medicine in each state and tell the states, you're on your own. You know, we went from 1 million shots a day to 3 or 4 million shots a day. Under Trump, the vaccine rollout was a national embarrassment. Under Biden, it's a model for the world. Why on earth does Trump deserve credit for that? I mean, it's crazy. If Trump deserves so much credit, why wasn't the press giving Trump credit for the vaccine last November and December and January? Because it was a fiasco. So why is it Biden's turn, you know, to give credit? And the press conference thing was just absolutely ridiculous. Yes, he hasn't given a press conference, and other presidents have since then. But no other president was dealing with a pandemic, with an insurrection, and with an impeachment trial. So Biden kind of had his hands full. He hadn't cut off access. He was answering questions. The daily White House briefing was happening every day. Reporters were getting professional, respectful responses to their queries. This was not part of a larger clampdown on information from the Biden White House. He's going to give one next Thursday, and then the whole story is going to disappear. But the press is just kind of, the preening on this is just kind of absurd. You know, claiming that, you know, the presidential press conference is kind of the pinnacle of communication for the White House. We watched the Trump press conferences for 4 years. Nobody was held accountable. It was not some instance where, you know, they pulled back the curtain on the Trump lies and things like that. So there's been a lot going on. A lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think a lot of it is the press wanting to kind of, like I said, create content and conflict.
You were at this point, and I had not thought about the people who made profit themselves off of book.
Yeah,
in the Trump administration. So I mean, it probably is affecting some people's bottom lines.
Yeah.
And you got to create some type of thing, but it's really absurd. And I mean, they've been talking about, I remember when they tried to make a story out of the dog. Yeah. Biting someone or attacking someone, and I was just like, well, "Who cares?" I mean, the person wasn't hurt. They sent the dog home. They tried to make that into controversy. They've been talking about his watch.
Right. Where Rolex, his exercise bike was expensive, so he wasn't the Scranton Joe. Real quick point, this White House also doesn't leak, and I think reporters are getting kind of cranky about that. This is very much a throwback to the Obama White House. There are not people running around leaking. It's not a chaos. It's not a circus like Trump was for 4 years. Reporters could get all kinds of aids to go off the record and talk about what was happening in the White House. That's just not going to happen with Biden for 4 years. And I think there's a frustration, which might be why they're taking shots about, hey, you haven't had a press conference and things like that.
Yeah. We're now hearing that the Hunter Biden story was something made up. Russia was involved in that. Where's the widespread reporting on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. That was that truly was Trump's last minute ditch in late October, early November. The story was clearly given to the New York Post, about Hunter Biden's laptop and supposedly these emails. Fox News went crazy because the mainstream media wouldn't, really pick up the story. Reporters tried to pick up the story. They tried to get the copies of the emails, and Rudy Giuliani wouldn't let them see anything But yeah, a new national intelligence declassified report was released this week. It said, Putin authorized all of this disinformation. Didn't really try to hack the infrastructure like 2016, but they used the U.S. media. They used people close to Trump, and they didn't specify, but just based on the people they mentioned in Russia, the Hunter Biden laptop story was clearly part of it. I think the media did learn some lessons. They did learn some lessons from 2016 to 2020. They jumped on all that disinformation in 2016, the hacked emails, the DNC, WikiLeaks and things like that. I think they wisely kind of held their fire a little bit with the Hunter Biden story. And now it's been confirmed that, look, this is something the American press is just going to have to deal with in terms of presidential campaigns. I mean, just open, rampant disinformation, the Russian government working with the Republican Party. It's not even subtle anymore. I mean, they are on the same page and they're pushing the same stuff. So that was confirmed. New York Post clearly working, with Russian operatives to try to upend the Biden campaign. It's an amazing place to be, but that's where we are.
And to me, that's the story they should cover, not Joe Biden's watch. You and I discussed this before. I mean, if the Beltway media, and you're right, they held their fire pretty much on the Hunter Biden piece, but we still see some naivete, in the name of not looking like the liberal media. But I mean, at what point does this Beltway media look in the mirror and say to itself, wait a minute, we don't want to be controlled by Putin either, even indirectly.
Right.
Because that's at the end of the day, that's what that becomes. If you're not really dealing with that and calling it what it is. And furthermore, I mean, if Putin is helping the Republican Party, and if the Beltway media is doing the bidding of the Republican Party by attacking Biden for no reason and by not calling a spade a spade. Now, one of your latest pieces is about how they refuse to use the term voter suppression. Just like, remember, they didn't want to call Trump a racist.
Right.
It's voter suppression.
Yeah, oh gosh, it is. I mean, it is textbook. In the piece, I include a definition of voter suppression. This is it. And it is unapologetic and it is aggressive. And there's over 200 bills at state legislatures where voting laws are passed. In Georgia, it's so clearly obvious the Republican Party, doesn't want more people to vote, and it doesn't want more black people to vote. I mean, they couldn't be more clear about this. I mean, they're talking about, eliminating Sunday voting, eliminating, shortening the election day voting, shortening the pre-voting, limiting the ballot box drops. I mean, it's literally anything they can think of. And so this is the definition of voter suppression. What's it called in the press? Voter restrictions. Well, people would say, well, it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. Voter suppression is very specific, just like calling Trump a liar or a racist would have been a factual, specific claim. Instead, we had 4 years of, he pushes falsehoods, exaggerations. He pushes white anxiety or things like that. There's a real reluctance to be accurate and clear in terms of describing the Republican Party today, which is a radical and dangerous and undemocratic entity. And that's not hyperbole, because all you have to do is look at those 150 House members who signed on for the lawsuit that wanted the Supreme Court to throw out tens of millions of legally cast ballots. I mean, that's the true Republican Party. The Beltway press still wants to portray them as kind of a center-right, mainstream party. So voter suppression sounds dangerous and illegal. Voter restriction sounds kind of plausible and debatable. So they're taking the safe bet. Voter restrictions. That's not what's going on. And when we play these word games, we're not dealing with the truth. And the truth, and there's a larger issue, two larger issues. This is all driven by the big lie, right? Where the Republican Party is passing all these voter suppression laws because they in the name of, election integrity. Well, there is not an election integrity issue in this country. And so that's part of it. And this is the reason the filibuster might have to be taken down, because if it's not, and we can't pass that new voting rights law, we might not have a democracy. I mean, if these bills are passed, the Democratic Party cannot compete with the Republican Party if they are going to pass laws that restrict. So anyway, there are lots of larger implications. So it's not just sort of this niche semantics debate we're having. Time and time again, the Republican Party has just smashed down, the guardrails of kind of rational thought and common decency and mainstream politics, and they're way over here. And the press is trying to pretend they're right here, and they're not. And they get away with it. And Republican Party knows they get away with it.
You're right. And
is your mattress making noises it never used to? Or is it sagging, causing you to... Then it's time to get a new one. Get the best sleep at the best value with a Nectar mattress. Prices start at just $499, and you get $399 in accessories thrown in, a 365-night home trial, and a forever warranty. Go to nectarsleep.com.
Available now is #1 New York Times bestseller 400 Souls, A Community History of African America from 1619 to 2019. Edited by Ibram X. Kendi and Keisha Blaine. This unique one-volume community history brings together 90 writers, poets, and thinkers, today's most vital and essential voices, creating a chorus that comes together to tell one of history's great epics, the 400-year journey of African Americans from 1619 to the present. The audiobook is narrated by an incredible 87 narrators, including contributors reading their own pieces like Alicia Garza, Angela Y. Davis, Sherilyn Ifill, and Pulitzer Prize-winning 1619 Project creator Nicole Hannah-Jones. 400 Souls is available wherever books and audiobooks are sold.
Hey peeps, it's your girl, Danielle Moody, host of Woke AF Daily. Every weekday, I'm sounding the alarm and keeping you woke to all the pure evil that is going on in our country. Check me out now at patreon.com/wokeaf. Get 5 new shows every week for just $5 a month. Get woke and stay woke as fuck.
So, folks, some of the headlines that Eric has pointed out: NBC News, Republicans advanced more than 100 bills that would restrict voting. Washington Post, state GOP lawmakers propose flurry of voting restrictions. Again, that word restrictions. Republican-led legislatures in dozens of states are moving to change election laws. NPR. I mean, all benign terminology. Yeah. Associated Press, critics, GOP measures target black voter. I mean, it's like they're going to quote people saying it.
Right.
They won't say it themselves. And speaking of can't compete, the guy who testified in the oral arguments in answer to Amy Coney Barrett said, we can't compete as Republicans against Democrats if we don't suppress the vote. Yeah. I mean, that's really what's going on. And we can probably anticipate that this type of coverage, if the Democrats do muscle up the courage, to do something about the filibuster, we can probably imagine how the press is going to deal with that. And not even because a lot of this too, Eric, is about history. If you have respect for history, then you say voter suppression. This isn't just something that came out of thin air. If you have respect for history, you will understand too that the filibuster is not this age-old sacred papal institution. Right. This was something that was never used until it came until civil rights legislation came to be. Right. So this is not something that, we've been doing this and it's sacred and, incense and mystification for 300 years. No, this got going as a result of civil rights legislation and as a way to prevent civil rights. Right. And the press should report that.
Yeah, and again, voter suppression. If you talk freely about voter suppression, you have to talk about what the history of voter suppression is. You have to talk about the Civil War. You have to talk about Jim Crow. You have to talk about the Voting Rights Act. And again, I think this is just a way of the press saying, we don't want to. Let's just call it voter restriction. Let's just pretend it's this partisan dust up. Democrats are opposed. Republicans are for it. Let's not get into that nasty history. Let's not wade into the waters of racism. Let's leave all that unpleasant stuff aside. Because if we get into that, we're going to get blasted for liberal media bias. We're going to get blasted for working with Democrats. So it's the exact same reason they wouldn't call Trump a liar for 4 years. They knew it. Everyone in the Beltway knew it. He's a pathological liar. There's nobody who worked in a newsroom in America who didn't understand that. But that was the edict for 4 years. Don't call him a liar in the news coverage. So again, we're seeing these word games. They only come up for Republicans, and they're invented out of thin air. And it's a really bad tradition that Trump has created for the Beltway media, I think. And it's a continuation now. Trump is off the stage, but we're seeing it with voter suppression. We're seeing the same word games.
And he enabled something that they were doing some time, I think. But here's my question. They seem to have sense enough to not cover him anymore. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what's worse, not covering him or doing his bidding in his absence. Uh-huh. I mean, that's kind of scary. So, okay, he's not around. Clearly, you don't want to put him on front, but we're just going to do his job for him. Right. Which suggests that, that mentality and that culture thoroughly infiltrated the Beltway media's thinking. And as you said, still there's nobody who's around today to accuse them of being liberal media, Eric, for them to fear that. The only people who would accuse them of that are the people they give too much coverage to in the first place. So they have control of that. Yeah. I'm sorry, man. This is crazy. What's next, man? What's the next story you're looking at?
I'd like to do something on the Hunter Biden and looking at the confirmation of Russian disinformation and how the press is just going to have to deal with this from now on. I'm also curious about the lack of anti-Biden Tea Party. 8 years ago by now, under Obama was pushing a massive spending bill, and that thing ignited like a tinder. And I think there's several reasons, obviously race being a big one. The COVID bill is popular. Fox News is obsessed with the cultural war. They don't really seem interested in policy anymore. So it's very interesting to me that Fox News, I think, has failed to ignite an opposition to Biden the way they did, unfortunately, so successfully against Biden in the early months of the first year.
Yeah, it's tricky with a white dude, isn't it? Different old white dude from Scranton. That's kind of tricky.
I know. I know.
Because I mean, there's I'm sure. I mean, nobody ever polled this, but I'm sure even if some of their followers look at that, and they get a little confused. Well, he does kind of look like my dad, and this person
looks like my dad, looks like my uncle, looks like my grandfather.
Yeah,
I think there are lots of that, and the Republican Party is hurting because of it. Because again, if you go back to the first, March of Obama's first year, man, there was no shortage of outrage in the streets. And you look around now, things are pretty quiet.
Yeah,
and Biden just passed a $2 trillion spending bill, free money for everybody in a good way.
Yeah,
and there's really not a peep.
Yeah, and I love the fact that he has short circuited that agenda.
Yeah,
for the time being, they can't even do to him what they were able to do to a Southern governor in Arkansas in Bill Clinton.
That's right.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And real quick, I think the Biden administration, a lot of those people learned from Obama administration. The Obama team came in. We're going to work with the Republicans. We're going to do this as long as it takes. We want their votes. We're going to show we can do it. And, Republicans strung them along. And while they strung them along, they just created more. And now we're talking about not so much the bailout. Now we're talking Obamacare. And they just strung them out and strung them out. And while they strung them out, they just ginned up that opposition and the hatred. So, to the Democrats, I don't blame the Obama team. I thought they were doing the right thing at the time. But they, the veterans looked at that and learned, and I loved it with the COVID negotiations back in February. After 3 days, Biden says, "I think we're done here. We'll see you at the signing."
Yeah. Well, but see, if the Beltway media was really doing its job, you probably remember this. When Obama was raising all those olive branches and trying to work with them
nonstop,
Biden was actually in the background raising hell. And there were a couple of occasions when they had those summits at the White House and John McCain and them were there. And Obama would call on Biden to speak, and Biden would rip into him, and then Obama would pull Biden back.
Oh, okay.
So, if you go back, that's what was going on. And what I always found it interesting, because Biden always presented as one, I'm the master of the Senate, and I have done the bipartisan thing. But he was like, no, this ain't working, and Biden said, hold on, Joe, just don't do that right now. And he'd go in. And so when people were saying, I'm worried about Biden, he's going to do the same thing Obama, they said, I don't know about that, because I saw him a couple other times, and Biden has to catch himself. He likes to cut loose with the tongue every now and then and use that colorful language. I said, I don't know if it's going to go down. And you're right. I'm glad that's not going down that way. And glad, look, because really, as you said, the coverage ought to be, this being one of the most significant pieces of legislation in history.
Yeah.
In the middle of a crisis. That's what really counts. And lastly, those people in the White House, this is also not being covered in the right way. They actually go to work, Eric. They actually go to work.
Yeah.
They're going to work to function for 4 years. And as far as most Republicans in the House, they don't go to work. They go to stop things from working.
Right.
They go to sabotage. They hate government, which is kind of counter to why do you run to represent government that you don't like? But it's sabotage. So we're not going to do. We're just not going to work. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to function. And these folk in the Biden White House and the Democrats in the Senate and the House, well, we actually got elected to do a job. We're getting paid for it. Might as well do some work, right? That's what most people do. So I think that is also the thing, and they can't bring it to a halt or a grind. And even as I said, it's hilarious to me to see that how they just cannot get traction on a scandal against someone who looks like them. Their husbands, fathers, grandfathers. They just can't do it.
The missing other. The other is missing, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't look like other. He looks like them. That was, real quick. I wrote about that during the campaign. During the primary and during the general election, I said all these people who think that Hillary Clinton attack book is going to work against Joe Biden, they don't understand American politics. She was the other. She was the woman. All those, greedy, villainous, can't trust her, all that stuff. None of it worked for Biden. I knew it never would. That's the sad state of American politics. It worked out great to have a Joe Biden for Democrats right now.
Yeah, that formula did work. Folks, please, you're missing something if you haven't already. Pressrun.media. And as he mentioned, Hillary Clinton reads Press Run every day, you all, and she supports it. Soledad O'Brien, so many great journalists and thinkers and politicos and leaders and activists. Check it out. There is no media commentary as fearless. Eric, I guess, has decided that he does not intend to seek employment at the New York Times. That's probably very unrealistic. I hope that's not breaking news for you. You're not still thinking they're going to hire you, do you? Okay, so that, and I too, by my association with Eric, will also probably never work at the New York Times. And I'm cool. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. Folks, we have to really start questioning how we spend our dollars, even when it comes to media. And if you're spending money with a medium that will not even call what you're experiencing voter suppression or racism, you ought to question whether or not you need to be sending them your money every single day. You can just get that online for free. That's just me. I'm just throwing it. That's me talking, not Eric. But please support pressrun.media. Eric, always a pleasure, buddy. You're doing great work, man.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it. Have a great week.
And he even has an audio cast too, y'all. If you go to the store, you want to listen to his melodious voice, you can hear him on the site as well. So wonderful. Thank you, man. Keep up the good work.
All right, thanks. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Greetings from Ireland. This is a quick taste of what to expect from the Tommy and Hector with Larita Blewett podcast.
There's rubbish and old hurleys and everything in the utility toilet, and I'd be sandwiched in there, and I just go, and I can hear someone in the kitchen going, "I'm in here, by the way."
But I remember visiting your house as a teenager, and none of your toilets had locks on the door, and I'd often be wandering out from the kitchen and hear your mother shouting out,
"I'm in here, by the way." Just let anybody who's passing know I'm in here, by the way. Listen to this show on the Acast app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast
recommends.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, over-designed, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter code FACE at checkout. That's harrys.com, code FACE. Enjoy!